Hi and welcome, I'm Danny James from Crossfader, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at 3 different ways that you can mix techno music. All of the techniques in today's video can be achieved on any piece of DJ equipment, it does not matter what you own. We are going to be doing EQs, phrasing techniques, as well as using volume faders. Make sure you comment below with your favourite technique shown in this video. Also be sure to check out our techno mixing course, where you can find over 35 videos just like this one, covering everything you need to know about mixing techno music. Everything from managing your music library, through to specific effects, and hardware specific tutorials. So without further ado, let's jump into the first technique. So the first technique is slow EQ blending. When you look at a lot of techno DJs out there, they may be doing these longer transitions in the mix, maybe up to a few minutes, and they're really crafting the sound and taking the audience on a journey, bringing in different sounds and so on. Let me show you what I mean. So I've got these 2 tracks here, and what I want to do is transition from det number 1 over to det number 2. And the way I want to do this is slowly blend my EQs. Now, I want to make a nice, smooth, clean transition. So what I'm going to do is start by killing all of my EQs right down to the minus point. I'm set on isolator mode so that you will hear no sound when all of the EQs are turned all the way to the left. So what I'm going to do is set the 2 tracks off here with Hot B, and then we're going to slowly transition these over, and I will talk you through it as we go. So let's start here. I'm just going to cue up in my headphones, make sure we're beat matched correctly. And what I'm going to start by doing is bringing in some of the mids, so you can hear some of the harmonic content coming through on the right hand side. Now you can hear we've got this sort of guitar harp sound come through. Now I'm going to slowly transition over some of the highs. At the same time, taking away some of the lows from the left hand side. So I'm stripping away the low end. I'm getting ready to add it in on the right hand side. Take away some more of the highs. Now, as you can hear on the left hand side, we still have this sound at the beginning. That little stab. You can still hear that over the top of the mix. Now I'll completely get rid of the highs and the lows. And I might boost this a little bit because that stab sound that we hear may be sat in the mid frequency range, so we can boost that slightly. I'm slowly getting rid of it by taking down the mids. Until it's gone. So as you could see there, we went slowly through the transition. We slowly took away the lows and the highs, and then slightly boosted the mids towards the end of the transition, as well as bringing in everything on the right hand side. This just made a really clean, smooth mix, and it sounds much more pleasing to the audience, rather than switching them in and out very quickly. Techno is more around mixing these longer blends and really taking the audience on a journey. So for the next technique, we're going to be looking at swapping the drops. Now what this means is we're not necessarily going from one track into another straight away. We're going to be keeping both of the tracks in the mix at the same time, creating a real nice high energy mix. So I've got this track here on the left hand side, Bone Jaw, and I've got a track on the right hand side called The Bells by Jeff Mills, very famous techno track. And what I'm going to do is move from Bone Jaw over to The Bells, but keeping them both in, switch out the elements and keep it really high energy. So let's start with Hot QC here, at the same time as triggering off Hot QB on the right hand side, just because that way I know I've got my phrasing correct, and I know that when the drops come, they're going to hit at the same time, and then I can switch over the elements as the drop hits. So let's start here with Hot QC and get it all beat matched up. So I'm just going to slowly introduce this Jeff Mills track, bring up the highs and some of the mids. And as you can see, the low end cuts here, which gives us the space to switch the low. Now the reason I've kept both tracks in together, you will hear if I take out the left hand side it loses a lot of its energy. Bring it back in, take it away, back in. You've got all this high end energy and those bells on the top, which you can hear there. So it's just adding another dimension to the mix. So as you can hear there, swapping the drop over can really add something else to your mix. It's really going to lift up the ears of the listener. It's going to catch them off guard. They'll be like, whoa, I didn't expect to hear that. It's something new that you've created yourself. It's basically, in a sense, a mashup that you've just come up with. So go and have an experiment with some of your tracks. Try these two tracks out in particular. The track list will be below. And I recommend just go ahead and have fun with it. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach this sort of technique, so go and experiment. So for the final example, we're going to be looking at layering. Now, looking at the two techniques before, we had slow EQ blending and swapping the drops. Layering takes elements of both of those techniques and makes something new. So, for example, in the techno world, you may hear a load of DJs doing mixes with 3-4 decks. Now, on one deck, they could have hi-hats. On the second deck, they could have synths. On the third deck, they could have an acapella. And on the fourth deck, they may have all the low end of the track, like the kick and the sub. And with all these different elements, they may weave in between different sounds. They could take stuff away, add stuff back in, boost some stuff, bring some stuff down in the mix slightly, and just layer everything together to create something new. So I'm going to show you this in two decks. I have a track on the left-hand side called Hera, and on the right-hand side, Vibrancy. And I'm just going to go between these two tracks and come up with something new. So I'm just going to start at the drop of this track on the left-hand side. And when the drop kicks in, I'm going to trigger off my track on the right and slowly blend between the two. So let's have a listen. 3, 2, 1, and just cue them up. And I'll start to add in some elements. So already you can hear what that's done to the mix. If I take away this track, we've got a lot of rides in there, a lot high end. Take it away, add it back in, away. So it's got like a big shaker on the top of that now, added like another level of energy. Now what I might start to do is switch over some of the lows. Switch. So the track on the right hand side has no drums in it all at the moment. We're going to let this carry on. So now we're layering in this synth line that you can hear there. We're letting that run over the top of these drums. So as you can hear individually, they're totally different tracks, but they seem to gel nicely together. Now what I might start to do is take some of the lows away. I can see on the left hand side we're building back up again. here we are back into the drop. So we've gone from one track to another and back again. So there you go, you could take layering much further than this. Like I mentioned earlier, you could add in a third or fourth deck with different elements of different tracks in to add into your mix, but that's just an example of 2 different tracks, taking the mix on a bit of a journey, going in and out from one track to another and back again. And then from there, I maybe go back to the track on the right hand side and let the mix continue there. Who knows what you might do. It's all about just adding things in and really elevating your mix. Another way that we look at this inside of our techno mixing course is by adding in different loops. Hi-hat loops, percussive loops, acapellas, synth loops, all sorts of stuff like that. There are infinite ways of things you could come up with when mixing like this. If it's something you're interested in, I highly recommend going and checking out our techno mixing course. It is a full A to Z of how to mix techno music. So there you have it. There are 3 different ways that you could approach mixing techno music. I hope you've learned something from this video, and I hope you can take some of these techniques and apply them to your mixes. I hope to see you again in another video very soon. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.